Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is an important day. We've seen the publication of the memoranda of understanding entered into between the United Kingdom, Gibraltar and Spain in the context of the Withdrawal Agreement and the protocol thereto which relates to Gibraltar. I'm going to ask the Deputy Chief Minister to remind us how we've got to this stage, and in particular the process of negotiating these MoUs before I deal with the detail that's in them.
Thank you. Good morning. I think the background is important because it is an essential part of why we're here today and how we've got here. As you know, we're here because in 2016 there was a referendum in the United Kingdom as to whether the UK should remain in the European Union or to leave the European Union. The UK, the overwhelming vote in Gibraltar was to remain, but the overall vote in the referendum was the vote to leave. That's why we're here today. So we voted to remain in the European Union. We didn't want to leave the European Union, but we came to the view that we were leaving. And therefore we needed to sit down and negotiate the best possible departure. In that process, we've engaged in over 500 meetings to do with Brexit, meetings and engagements. We've met every member state of the European Union. We've also met with different MEPs, influential MEPs, chairmen of committees in the European Parliament, and with the EU institutions themselves. Separately, we held very useful discussions with the devolved administrations in Scotland and Wales, with Northern Ireland, and also with the Crown dependencies and the other overseas territories in order to see exactly how Brexit was impacting on their relationships with the European Union and what solutions they were seeking to establish for themselves. And in that discussion with different member states, I think we should make it clear we've also engaged directly with Spain. There has been a variable geometry for that discussion, so there have been different varieties of geometry, but it has included direct contact between Spanish officials and Gibraltar only, without the United Kingdom, and also contact, obviously, as you know, with the United Kingdom as well. So we've had a variable geometry. That has led us to where we are today. The Chief Minister has led those discussions for Gibraltar. If I may say, with unashamed bias, he's done so extremely well, with a determination and a resolve to produce and to come up with the best possible deal for Gibraltar, and that is what we have established. You know, we are now, if this comes to fruition and the vote in the UK Parliament is a vote to accept the deal, there is a protocol on Gibraltar. It provides for our inclusion in the Withdrawal Agreement, and also importantly for our inclusion in the implementation phase, in the 2-year transition until the end of 2020, whereby everything will remain largely in the same way as it is today. And that will give us time to talk about the future. So that is in a nutshell why we're here and how we've got here, and I'll pass you on to the Chief Minister who will elaborate on the texts.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words. The starting point for these negotiations was the establishment of the negotiating guidelines by the European Council in April 2017. In particular, a negotiating guideline, Article 24, which sought to exclude Gibraltar from the application of any future withdrawal agreement that might have been entered into. And so I think it's important that we reflect on how Gibraltar felt at the time that those negotiating guidelines were agreed. And I think it's important that we should do that because I think the events of the last weekend have been a little like the events surrounding the announcement by the European Council of those negotiating guidelines in April 2017. And yet today we are announcing the detail of the arrangements which have been entered into for Gibraltar to form part of that withdrawal process. So the key issue for Gibraltar in the context of these discussions was, of course, to protect sovereignty, jurisdiction and control. And in the context of sovereignty, jurisdiction and control, the government has seen itself also as the guardian of the 2006 Constitution and ensuring that the established principles of where obligations and rights reside between the United Kingdom and Gibraltar should be preserved in the context of the arrangements that are being entered into. And so, as the Deputy Chief Minister has indicated, we entered a process, a fluid process of negotiation with all the member states, including in particular Spain, in a manner which required Gibraltar to defend its own interest in the context of withdrawal, and which the United Kingdom gave us the space to do. I think there has been now clearly established between the United Kingdom and Gibraltar the fact that Gibraltar's situation is different to that of the United Kingdom and requires what we have been calling a differentiated solution in some respects as we leave the European Union, because we are leaving a different type of membership that the United Kingdom is leaving. Well, our membership has been different throughout, and as we look to the future, negotiating as one UK family, our future relationship with the European Union and each of its member states. So, in that context, I thought it was helpful of Alfonso Dastis, who became Foreign Minister of Spain, to set out the list of irritants as Spain saw them, which they wanted dealt with in the context of this process. And I, as you will recall, immediately adopted the definition of matters as irritants for Gibraltar too. Now, there were a number of areas where we have not been able to come to agreement. One of the issues which Spain brought to the table early on was the issue of the airport. There, we detected Spain wishing to cross our red lines on sovereignty, jurisdiction and control. And therefore, the position of the government of Gibraltar has been well known, has not changed in public or in private, and we have not been able to present you today with an understanding as to how Gibraltar Airport might operate in keeping with the arrangements set out at Golva, which is what the government of Gibraltar set out to achieve. In fact, what you've seen in the protocol is that the status quo will be maintained in respect of Gibraltar Airport until the end of our membership of the European Union at the end of the transition period. We are left with the areas of citizens' rights, tobacco price, Police and Customs Cooperation and the environment. And I intend to take you through each of those memoranda at a high level and answer your questions in respect to each of them. In interpreting the memoranda that we have entered into, the government of Gibraltar has entered into also a concordat with the United Kingdom, which sets out the relationship between us constitutionally and how that is affected by these memoranda and how therefore our obligations translate into the implementation of the memoranda. I think you've all had an opportunity of seeing that document now. It has also been published. For me, it is the most important of all of the documents published today because it demonstrates to the world that the implementation of the memoranda is the responsibility of the government of Gibraltar, and it is the government of Gibraltar that carries the obligation and enjoys the rights set out in the memoranda in the terms set out in the concordat. That actually links quite well to the second recital of the protocol on Gibraltar, which, as you know, talks about the respective constitutional orders of the United Kingdom and Spain. And in the publishing of each of the memoranda, the government of Gibraltar has added a note for interpretation so that, in particular, people in Gibraltar reading the memoranda have in their minds all of the aspects of what I've put to you today, other than the ones I'm going to take you through now. The first being signature, and the fact that these documents are entered into with signatures for Spain by their foreign minister, for the United Kingdom not by Jeremy Hatton, the Foreign Secretary, but actually by the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lidington, longtime friend of Gibraltar, previously Minister for Europe, but importantly for the United Kingdom. And with the United Kingdom itself saying in the Concordat that the terms United Kingdom in the Concordat have the definition in Article 3 of the Withdrawal Agreement, which includes Gibraltar. And because, of course, in the context of entering into an international agreement, Gibraltar does not have its own capacity, as is recognized in our constitution. That's why it's important that be reflected also in the Concordat, but also, more importantly, as is recognized by the terms of our current membership of the European Union. So we were only members of the European Union in order to be able to leave it under Article 3553 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, as a part of the territory of the continent of Europe for the external relations of which a member state was responsible. So there should be no surprise, therefore, that in the context of entering into the signature of these agreements, it should be the party, because this is an external relation, an international agreement, the party signing it should be the United Kingdom. And that no rule that we may have for ourselves, either political rule or legal constitutional rule, is offended by the fact that these agreements are entered into by David Lidington. So that's an important thing which is spelt out in the explanatory note that we've added to each of the memoranda. And finally, and I think this is a point that the Deputy Chief Minister was alluding to, these memoranda come into effect if there is a withdrawal agreement. In other words, they hang off a withdrawal agreement. They're referred to in the protocol to the withdrawal agreement, and they implement in some measure some of the things set out in the withdrawal agreement. So the withdrawal agreement sets out the continuing rights and obligations of the United Kingdom, of the institutions, of the 27 other member states, and of individuals. So citizens continue to have rights in the United Kingdom and in the EU after the UK has left. And therefore, that which is contained in the withdrawal agreement and referred to in the protocol then is given life to in respect of Gibraltar in the memoranda of understanding. There are no memoranda of understanding if there is no withdrawal agreement. If there is a withdrawal agreement, the memoranda come to an end in December 2020. So I think those are many and complex principles, but we have to have them in mind before we go to the memoranda themselves and start to analyse them. On citizens' rights, I think this is an important memorandum to give comfort to all of those who are exercising community rights today. And in particular those who are exercising rights to work in one member state whilst living in another. So to understand the structure of this, for us it's very important that we defended throughout, principally, that the rights of residents of Gibraltar today enjoying EU rights should continue to be enjoyed throughout the process of transition. That is achieved. But those rights, which are rights of free movement, for example, are contained in the withdrawal agreement. That's where they're set out. And the withdrawal agreement sets up a structure for citizens to be able to ensure that their obligations are being honoured by the member states, etc. What we've done is create a structure to pursue that in respect of Gibraltar and the area around Gibraltar also. So you don't have to make a complaint to the United Kingdom or to the Commission if you feel in this part of the world that your rights are not being pursued. There will be a special committee to do that in the context of this region, which we thought was the right way to progress. And in doing so, the committee will be made up of relevant competent authorities from the Spanish side and relevant competent authorities on the Gibraltar side. There will be one representative of the government of the United Kingdom. Important, because remember that this hangs off a UK-EU agreement, and 6 representatives appointed by the competent Gibraltar authorities, which will include social security, will include employment, etc. So I think this is important recognition of the existence of competent authorities in Gibraltar for the first time in our history under the signature of a Spanish Foreign Secretary. This is, in my view, hugely important because the references are explicit, and not only are they explicit, they are designed to give effect to explicit obligations which reside only in the competence of the government of Gibraltar. So I'm very happy that we've been able to work constructively with Spanish colleagues and that that recognition comes about in the way that is now a reality set out in this Citizens' Rights Memorandum. The important thing, of course, is that this Citizens' Rights Memorandum is reciprocal, because there are, believe it or not, some Gibraltarians or some residents of Gibraltar who go to work to Spain every day. They really know how to beat the queues. They go in the wrong direction of the queues every night. But however many or few there may be, their rights had to be protected also. And the rights that we are talking about recognizing are the existing rights under the treaty. The important thing is that those rights will endure through the transitional period, and in respect of citizens' rights, this is the only area where the withdrawal agreement will continue after the transitional period, and those who are exercising their rights have an acquired right to continue to exercise their rights until the end of their working life, if they're exercising rights to work, or until the end of their lives, even if they're exercising rights to reside. And that is a right deposited and existing in the Withdrawal Agreement, and in the context of Gibraltar, set out in the Citizens' Rights Memorandum. It's important there that we maintain in our minds the fact that it has been said rightly, and it's a good way of remembering the effect of the Withdrawal Agreement, that the Withdrawal Agreement will therefore be in effect until the youngest baby exercising rights under EU law dies many years from now. Because, for example, a French couple who are born of a French citizen baby in the United Kingdom exercising EU rights will transmit to that child those rights, and that child will be able to exercise those rights, if he wishes, until he dies, or until he otherwise breaks the link set out in the Withdrawal Agreement. This is the one memorandum, therefore, that will endure in respect of individuals' rights, if there is a Withdrawal Agreement. I'm sorry that this is complex, but I think it's important that I should set out to all of you what it is that we have agreed. The second memorandum that we have agreed relates to the price of tobacco. This is an important memorandum, and it's a memorandum that reflects the unilateral commitment of the government of Gibraltar to have a price differential of 32% between Gibraltar and Spain in respect of average retail prices on tobacco, broken down into 4 bands of tobacco. And also not just in respect of cigarettes, but also in respect of 2 bands of raw tobacco. And those 4 bands of tobacco will each have a floor price, and as will the 2 bands of raw tobacco. And also exchange of information in respect of those who we may each be concerned might be involved in tobacco illicit activity. Again, a reciprocal commitment in respect of information sharing and enforcement, because too often the media talks about issues relating to tobacco smuggling from Gibraltar to Spain. The government of Gibraltar is concerned that some in Spain may be pretending that tobacco is coming to Gibraltar. It doesn't actually come into Gibraltar, and it stays in the market there. And those cigarettes are then attributed to Gibraltar as having been smuggled from Gibraltar. So an important reciprocal commitment there. Again, you will see that this is a document signed by the Foreign Secretary of Spain. There is a specific reference to the government of Gibraltar and to the government of Gibraltar's legislative capacity. This is important. The Foreign Secretary of Spain has signed an agreement which recognizes Gibraltar's legislative capacity and a unilateral commitment of the government of Gibraltar. We were not prepared to have Spain determine the price of tobacco in Gibraltar, as some people might have speculated before the memorandums are published. The government of Gibraltar set out what we thought was the right price bracket, and we have achieved that in the negotiations, 32%. Why did we think that was the right price bracket now? Because the smallest price difference is in the region of 25%, and the widest price difference on our cheapest brands is in the region of 48%. The brands that we have identified were not in the smuggling market, were at 31.95% difference, or above. And that's therefore where we determined it was right that we should unilaterally commit to the price being fixed. Now, this MoU reflects that, but the commitment to act is actually set out in a letter that I will send to the Prime Minister, which I have sent to the Prime Minister, in fact, which sets out how we will act and why we will act in more detail even than this memorandum. And the mechanism will be a gazette issued on the last Thursday of every quarter, setting out the minimum prices for the next quarter. Is this a drastic change in the way that Gibraltar fixes its cigarette prices? Well, first of all, this does not deal with duties. So this is not about tobacco taxes. This agreement is not about import duties. This agreement is about average retail prices. We are introducing a new concept into the market, the concept of the minimum retail price. Okay, so this does not touch taxes. It's not an agreement about taxes. Second, how do we fix a tobacco price today? Which we do through taxation and other ways, by looking at the price in Spain. That is the way that we've fixed in Gibraltar now for many generations. The price of tobacco, the price of diesel, and the price of other commodities. So this reflects that which we are already doing and our unilateral commitment to continue doing it in a way that increases price. I've already indicated, I think, that tobacco prices have gone up in Gibraltar by 148% since I became Chief Minister. There are health reasons why we need to deal with this issue. We're also seeking the extension to Gibraltar of a number of conventions on track and trace, which is set out in the protocol, as you've seen. And the government of Gibraltar is acting like every government in the Western Hemisphere that is concerned about the consumption of this particular commodity. We do not, however, think that this will affect our revenue from tobacco, because our experience has been, since I took over the post of Minister for Public Finance, that the more we increase the price of tobacco, the more the quantities come down, but the more the revenue goes up. And this is a model that has worked in the United Kingdom and in every other European jurisdiction, where prices have gone up, quantities have come down, revenue has gone up as well. In other words, the smaller amount of consumers that are prepared to pay the higher price produce a higher tax take for the government. The next memorandum that we're dealing with is the Memorandum on Cooperation on Environmental Matters. This for us is a very important piece of work. We have wanted to cooperate with the Spanish authorities on environmental matters for a long time. John Cortes has been able to work extra-officially with colleagues of his in the Junta de Andalucía, etc. But at last we have now a memorandum that enables us to establish a commission where we will work together, a technical and coordination commission where we will work together. Now, that will not be a determinative commission. It will not be a commission that will make any decisions about anything. This is an important thing. It's a cooperation commission where we're able to discuss things and work together. Now, you will have seen already for yourselves what it is that the Commission will be doing. I know that there's been an element of discussion about fishing activity, and I want to point out that what the Technical Coordination Commission will do is give us the platform for the discussion of fishing activities. We have established for ourselves, as you know, a working group on fishing, which included fishermen from the Spanish side of the frontier. This is the first time that we have been able to draw into an official commission the Spanish official side to discuss with us the issue of fishing. Discuss, nothing else. I think that's important. Issues in relation to reclamation, I think, have also hit the headlines for some time in Spain. The clear position set out in the memorandum is that we will continue, this is important, to provide information on any reclamation which may have transboundary effect. Why do we do that? And why do I say continue? Because already the environmental directives of the European Union require us to do so. And we're required to do so until the end of the transitional period, and that is all that is reflected in this memorandum. I can tell you, by the way, in any event that, as you will all know, the government of Gibraltar envisages continuing reclamation inside the harbour at the moment, in the Coaling Island site, which we are waiting to start, but there are no current projects for reclamation outside of the harbour, which are presently on foot, other than revetment repair work on the east side reclamation. The Technical Commission will be an opportunity, I think, for us to not just cooperate, but also to clear officially a lot of the myths that are created about Gibraltar and how we look after our environment, and I think we have a great story to tell there. I would point out two things in particular. The important references to the marine environment, the wider marine environment, where Gibraltar is now recognized. Again, this document is signed by the Spanish Foreign Secretary. Gibraltar is recognized to have a wider marine environment. I don't think anybody can persuade anyone that port waters amount to a wide marine environment. And also, importantly, the opportunity to obtain information about air quality. Gibraltarians have been concerned, all of us, about air quality in the region for some time. We're concerned about what we do in respect of air quality. We're all very concerned also about what happens in the region in respect of air quality, in particular the Cepsa refinery and the other heavy industries in the area of Los Barrios. This memorandum enables us in the Technical Coordination Commission to seek information about air quality that the competent authorities may have in the region, and it obliges us to provide our data on air quality. Ours, as you know, is published on our websites, but we'll be very happy to do that. Also, we're able to obtain information about reclamations that have occurred already and the transboundary effect that those may have. We have been very concerned about the effect that some of the reclamations in Algeciras have had on some of our revetments here. There are even potential legal claims. This will enable us to obtain the information to pursue potentially pursue those legal claims. I think there was a lot to be pleased about in the context of this MoU. The reference, for example, to bunkering activities and to promoting the highest environmental protection standards regarding bunkering activities is one we're very happy with. As you know, the bunkering code for Gibraltar has been used as a model for bunkering codes beyond Gibraltar, so we think we have a very good story to tell, and we hope to be able to influence positively bunkering practice in the whole of the Straits of Gibraltar as a result of the work of this commission. Then we have also the memorandum on police and customs matters. Now, since I became Chief Minister, I think I pursued the line that all my predecessors pursued, which was that we wanted our police and our customs to work in partnership with colleagues around them, whether the Spanish authorities or the Moroccan authorities. And if I may say so, I believe coppers and customs officers actually just get on with it and they don't allow the politicians to get in the way. And at a human level, there's a strong cooperation which we see manifesting itself in law enforcement, sometimes at sea and sometimes on land. Unfortunately, sometimes the politics gets in the way. So I hope what we've achieved with this memorandum of understanding is to take the politics out of that ability of police officers and customs officers to cooperate. I hope that this will enable them to have the now official framework for that cooperation and to enhance the cooperation that they will pursue. Of course, I'm very pleased with some particular aspects of this memorandum I want to take you to, but all of the memorandum for both parties are without prejudice to the respective positions in respect of sovereignty, etc. But this one in particular I think is an important one for Gibraltar because it's on police and customs cooperation. There are references to the criminal legislation in force in Gibraltar. I can't imagine a more explicit recognition of jurisdiction and legislative capacity than a reference to the criminal law in place in Gibraltar, again signed by Mr. Borrell, the Foreign Secretary of Spain. Also, I think in particular important for us in the context of some of the debate that I've seen raging on social media, the fact that police and customs will cooperate when dealing with illegal fishing. So there's a specific reference to police and customs cooperating on illegal fishing, and in particular a reference to the criminal legislation in force in Gibraltar at the beginning of the sentence that then refers to illegal fishing. So again, I think that this is a great opportunity to strengthen the links that already exist at a practical level. There will be representation from the Royal Gibraltar Police and the Customs Office, HM Customs Gibraltar, in the committee that will be established with an equal number of members. Explicit recognition, once again, of the existence of the Royal Gibraltar Police and Her Majesty's Customs under the signature of Joseph Borrell, the Foreign Secretary of Spain. So I think that demonstrates the good faith with which all parties have been negotiating in order to be able to achieve a realistic set of memorandums that doesn't pretend to obviate the existence of Gibraltar as one of the most important parties to the discussions and indeed to the memoranda. So in that context, I think I've taken you through both how we got to the memoranda, how to interpret the memoranda, and the highlights of what's in the memoranda, knowing that you have now had an opportunity to read them for yourselves, and you will have detailed questions about them also. I must tell you, I think one of the most important things that has happened in the past 24 hours has been the final publication of the concordat between the government of Gibraltar and the government of the United Kingdom. I think that concordat reflects the maturity of the relationship between Gibraltar and the United Kingdom, and the respect that the government of the United Kingdom has for the administration of government in Gibraltar, something which I do not ascribe to just my government, I ascribe to successive governments of Gibraltar since this small nation of ours moved from having a city council to having a parliament and a government. So thank you very much indeed. I'm happy to take whatever questions you might have and to do